I used to think cheating was the cruelest thing in marriage, but it's not. The cruelest thing is lying next to someone every night and still feeling completely alone. I married him. I betrayed him. I lost him. And in the end, I realized my family had been right all along.
I wore my wedding dress under a June morning sky. Everyone smiled, except my mother. Before I stepped out, she held my hand and whispered, "You can still turn back now." I smiled, not because I didn't understand, but because I thought love could conquer anything. My father said no, my mother cried, my sister begged me not to. Dad said, "A man who's been in debt once will never sleep peacefully." Mom warned, "That calmness you see in him, it's coldness, not peace." My sister texted late that night, "Sis, you can't fix someone by loving them." I ignored them all. I loved Lum. Quiet, steady, the kind of man who made me feel safe. I believed love could change a person. After the wedding, we moved into a small apartment with a pink bougainvillea on the balcony. I quit my job after the pandemic. He worked long hours to build his business. He wasn't cruel, just busy, but busy enough that I started disappearing from his life. Every night, I waited with dinner ready. He'd come home, drop his keys, and say, "Let me shower first." I'd hear water running behind the bathroom door and realize I was lonelier than when I lived alone. He asked, "How was your day?" out of habit. I replied, "Fine," out of politeness. On my birthday, he texted, "I'm in a meeting, we'll celebrate tomorrow." I ate cake alone and blew out the candles in silence. At 1 a.m., he came home with a fancy watch. "Happy birthday," he said. I smiled, thanked him, and hid my tears. A watch that tells perfect time, ironic, because he never showed up on time for us. Then came Thing, my college friend, someone who once liked me but never confessed. We met again at a reunion. He was warm, talkative, and attentive in the small ways that Lum no longer was. He began messaging me, songs, poems, funny stories. He never flirted, he just listened. And for the first time in years, someone said to me, "I understand." One day, I failed a job interview. Thing showed up with egg tarts. He said, "Just something sweet, so life doesn't taste so bitter." I laughed, but my throat tightened. It had been a long time since anyone cared whether I was okay. That night, I went home. Lum was still working. I wanted to tell him about the interview, but he was on a business call. I turned away quietly, not realizing I'd just taken my first step away from my marriage. Thing kept texting every night, asking about my day. He once said, "You endure too much." The words stung because they were true. Then, one rainy evening, Lum called. "I have to stay at the site overnight." I was alone, cooking soup for one. Thing messaged, "I'm near your place." I replied with a single word, "Okay." One word, enough to ruin everything. He came with wine. We talked, laughed, then fell silent. The rain hit the windows like someone knocking on my conscience. When I leaned on his shoulder, it felt like I could finally breathe. We kissed, short, trembling, wrong. Afterwards, I told him to leave. He apologized. I turned on the shower, sat on the floor, and cried under cold water until my skin went numb. I texted Lum, "Can you come home early tonight?" No reply. 2 hours later, "I'll stay at the site." I dropped my phone and sobbed, not because he stayed, but because he didn't even sense I was breaking. I swore it was a one-time mistake, but loneliness has a way of softening your spine. A message, a glance, another coffee. I fell again. I lied to everyone, to Lum, to my mother, to myself. I told myself, I'm just lost, but no one ever gets lost and returns whole. Our second anniversary came. I bought a cake, lit candles. He came home on time for once with white roses. He said, "I got you something," handing me an old camera. "I know you love photography." I started to cry, not from joy, but from fear. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Thing. "I miss you tonight." The screen lit up right in front of Lum. He looked, didn't say a word, just put the phone back on the table. After dinner, he asked quietly, "Do you have something to tell me?" I froze. Then I nodded. I told him everything, every mistake, every lie. He listened silently, his face calm, but his eyes hollow. When I finished, he asked one question. "You needed to feel alive, so you killed what was left of us?" I couldn't answer. He stood up, went to the bedroom, and began packing his shirts. He didn't yell, he didn't curse. He called both families, said plainly, "Han and I need time apart." I sat on the edge of the bed, watching him fold his shirts, precise, neat, emotionless. I wanted to beg him to stay, but even my tears felt meaningless now. 2 months later, we signed the divorce papers. No arguments, no conditions. I asked to keep the small apartment. He agreed. Before leaving, he said, "I just wish you'd talk to me before there was nothing left to save." Then, after a pause, "But maybe I was too busy to listen." When the door closed, I collapsed. That was the first time I cried, not from loss, but from understanding. Thing disappeared soon after. He texted, "I'm sorry, I'm scared." I replied, "So am I." I didn't hate him. I didn't hate Lum. I only hated how easily I'd mistaken attention for love. I rented a small room downtown, got a low-paid job in writing. Days blurred into quiet routines. Instant coffee, takeout dinners, and words I no longer believed in. The watch Lum gave me still ticked perfectly. Time moved forward. I didn't. Mom visited once, bringing soup. She didn't lecture me anymore. While we ate, she asked, "Do you regret it?" I said yes. She nodded. Then there's still hope. People who stop regretting are the ones truly lost. A month later, I ran into Lum at the supermarket. He was buying vegetables, I was buying rice. We greeted each other politely like neighbors. Before leaving, he said, "I hope you're okay." I smiled and nodded, then cried quietly between aisles of canned food. The first New Year without him, my relatives asked too many questions. Mom just said they weren't meant to be. I smiled at their pity. Fireworks boomed outside. Inside, only silence. That night, I opened my laptop, created a file titled "Things I Should Have Said," and I wrote, "If I could go back, I'd stop at my mother's words, 'You can still turn back now.' Not to walk away from him, but to learn how to love properly before giving my heart to someone too busy to notice it breaking." I placed a period, closed the file. Outside, rain began to fall. Soft, steady, real. I opened the window and breathed in the cold air. My family didn't forbid me from loving him. They only tried to save me from the cliff I insisted on jumping off. And I jumped, dragging down a man who once loved me completely. Regret can't fix a marriage, but it can stop you from lying to yourself ever again.